You're being watched, followed, hunted, even. You don't know by who or why, but you feel it. You know someone is after you. You're sure of it. You tell your friends, your family. You say they're trying to kill me. But no one believes you. They just tell you to get some rest. But you can't do that. You need to go. You need to get out of here. You cannot stay where you're at, or else something very bad is going to happen. What would you do if that was you?
Chambers of the Occult may contain content that might not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Who's after me?
Isn't that the question?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. I don't know.
Would
That's actually a
would
great
you stay where you're
question.
at? Like, would you try to move? Would you like get the hell out? Like anything? I
I'm
don't know.
trying to think of it because, like, if I'm like in my situation, if that's happening, where do I run to? Who do I reach out to? I was how do I go about this without sounding crazy or
No,
like
literally.
paranoid or something? Yeah. Wow. Because the way that you started this, I was like, okay, it sounds like people are gonna dismiss them and say that they're paranoid or something. But the way, obviously, it's gonna be a true crime you're covering it, so maybe not, or who knows? Um, yeah, I don't know. Ah, I
um,
would definitely reach out to some people for sure. But after that, depending on how they react or what they say,
yeah.
um, take it from there.
Well, yeah, listeners, what would you do? Well, as you type that though, I guess we'll introduce ourselves, right?
Yeah, I'm Jay,
I'm Kai. I don't know why
and
I didn't just
welcome.
start, but
No,
anyway,
that's fine. I love how you pointed
um,
though, because that made it very clear who was starting, rather than just like the
yeah,
dead stare of like no
yeah.
one doing anything.
Weird chambers
Um,
of the occult.
welcome back, or welcome for the first time.
Thanks for being here. As always, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, I was just
Also,
telling. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just telling Jay before we started recording that, compared to some of my other openings, this one's a little bit more vague, less detailed, and that's because I wanted to save some of the details of this case for the actual story. You know, I didn't
Okay.
want to give too much information just off the start. But
Uh huh.
yeah, so I'm excited to say it. Anyway, go ahead, Jay.
Now that you brought that up, I guess I'm a little. I don't even know if I'm like a little jealous or not, but like the listeners know what your case is. I don't.
Oh, that's true, because
Because
you
of
guys
the
have a title
description.
and a
Yeah,
description.
I don't know what
Nah,
this is.
don't read the
um,
description.
yeah,
If,
but
if you're
anyway,
if you're watching this right now, you've probably already read the title, but
yeah,
you may have not read the description. So maybe don't read the description. I don't know.
yeah. But yeah, so get started because I lost my train of thought. So at some point I'll remember and bring it back up. Yeah.
All right. Well, our case revolves around a 31-year-old man named Blair Adams. So, Blair Adams, he was born on December 28th, 1964. He lived in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. Kind of funny, I've actually been to Surrey, and I gotta say, it's not a very nice town,
Ah.
unfortunately.
Okay, this was
Um,
1960 what?
60, well, he was born 1964,
Okay.
but this case was in 1996.
Okay, maybe it was better and it went downhill. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
If we have listeners from there, let us know. If if let us know if you agree with Kai.
hmm Well, it's because I had a friend there who lived in Surrey, and I went to like visit her. Like it's right next to Vancouver, and like we all know Vancouver is like a beautiful city in
Yeah.
Canada. And so like she took me there, but we were walking through like where she lived, which was actually Surrey, and I was like, oh, this is not like the Vancouver that I
Yeah, yeah.
expected. Anyway,
Fair.
we're way off topic, and we haven't even started this fucking
No,
case.
that's fine. You're given context, background.
Yeah, I guess so. Um,
Yeah.
So, so Blair Adams, um, he lived in Surrey, British Columbia, right? He was sort of like a foreman for his stepdad's construction company. So he had a regular job. He was a regular guy. You know, people described him as um, kind, as a gentleman. Um, um, and even in 1995, for a construction project, it actually brought him to Frankfurt, Germany, which is really interesting. I don't get how a construction project brought him to Germany, but whatever. Um,
Maybe they had an office there or something.
something, yeah. But apparently, he was so nice that he met a girl in Germany and they started dating. And so, his girlfriend just had good things to say about him. Well, and she was living
Okay.
in Germany.
Okay.
Now,
So she wasn't
Adams,
the one stalking him.
well, hopefully not. um, he did have a bit of a history of alcoholism. He had battled it. But in 1996 or so, apparently, he was sober. He had been attending Alcoholics Anonymous, and did move past that.
Good.
Now, even though he was described as usually kind and gentle, some colleagues, specifically those from Germany and the construction projects, they described him as abrasive or even confrontational, but there's really not too much info to really back that up.
Okay. Other than
Um,
like a comment here or there.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Nothing, literally nothing concrete that I could find on this. So who really knows? Now, this
Wait.
1995 was normal. 1996 came to be, and he was living life like normal as well. But by the summer of 1996, July 11th, 1996 specifically, is when things would kind of go pretty insane. Because on July 11th, 1996, Blair Adams was found murdered in a parking lot.
Wow. We just jumped straight to it.
hmm In a parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee.
What? Not even in Canada.
Over
Not.
2,500 miles away.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, it's not even one of those states that's like neighboring
Nope.
Canada. Wow.
Nope.
Okay, so when you were saying where you would go if someone was like following you or like stalking you, this man fled the country
hmm
to
hmm
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Wow. So he took it serious.
Oh, yes, he did.
And apparently whoever or whatever was following him did as well.
um, and that's the craziest part, which I'll get into.
Yeah.
So Adams's body was discovered by two construction workers around 7:30 in the morning on July 11th, 1996. So, um, his Adam's body was discovered in a construction site. It was a hotel that was being built. Its address was 7471 Crosswood Boulevard.
Okay.
And it was on the like Interstate 40 like highway pretty much.
Hmm.
So, not like it was anywhere remote, really.
Oh, so was it like he was on the move?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so he was discovered by these two construction workers, but it wasn't just like a normal murder scene because Adams was found described as half naked. Um, his pants
Okay.
supposedly were off, but according to um, the officer that found him, it wasn't in a state where like he took his pants off. It looked like somebody had ripped them off.
But okay.
So his pants were off, his socks were lying around, they were turned inside out. His shoes were scattered, his shirt
Okay.
torn open. And it
Okay.
almost seemed like in his dying moments, he sort of managed to grab one of his shoes and kind of tuck it under his head as like a little pillow, maybe something for comfort as he was dying.
Oh, I thought it like to use it as a weapon, but as a little pillow.
Yeah,
No, I feel like that's tragic.
it is tragic. Yeah,
I mean,
like
knowing that like
last
that's your
moment of comfort type of thing.
yeah, like you want to lay your head in a shoe as you know you're gonna die.
Yeah,
That's oh no.
but that's not the only thing that was found around his body. Scattered around were German, Canadian, and US dollars currency,
Okay.
totaling close to $4,000, as well as a small black duffel bag that had maps, travel receipts, and another bag that held 160 grams of gold bars, gold and platinum coins, jewelry,
Wow.
pair of sunglasses, and the keys um, to a car. um,
This
so
man
go ahead.
just I feel like this man sold everything and was ready to go.
Pretty
Wow.
much. Um,
Also, was he planning to go to Germany?
why do you ask that?
Because of the money.
uh, this is why I didn't want to include many details in
No,
the
fair,
cold open.
fair. No, that's totally
'Cause it
fine.
keeps it kind of fun for me.
Yeah.
Um, God, I'm laughing at a man's death. This is crazy. Let me
We
reevaluate my life for a
are.
second.
Listen,
I'm sorry.
we're enjoying a mystery. Uh, whether there was justice, I don't know. You do. Um, and we're trying to lighten the mood because I think we don't talk about death enough. I think people just kind of forget about it till it happens.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. We don't. There's so much like evil out there, to be completely honest, and like murder and everything. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, not to like deviate or get too deep, but um, yeah, that's at least the way I see it. As like we don't talk about it enough.
hmm So, what is your biggest burning question right now? I know what mine
Uh,
is.
Kai, I don't
If you
have a
have
single
one, if you have
question.
one, all
I
right.
have a plethora of
Shoot,
questions.
give him to me.
First of all, was he gonna go to Germany? Was there a passport with him? Because clearly,
Okay.
if he had German, like I don't know, was there a weapon found? What was? like, was there an autopsy made? Like, what was the method of like that was used?
Okay.
I want to see that autopsy report, not to be like morbid or anything. I'm just
No, yeah.
fascinated by autopsy reports. Um, those are my questions. Where was he staying? Was he just like staying at a motel? Was he passing through? Once again, if he was passing through, did they find the vehicle that he was in? Um, yeah, like what else did they find? I mean, that's what they found at the scene, right? Like the gold and like the silver, and or did they find that with other belongings?
Great questions. I am so
Sorry,
glad you.
I
No,
knew I
no, no,
just
I'm
like threw
so
them
glad
all
you
at
asked me all
you.
of this. No, I love it. I asked for it.
So okay, yeah. Go ahead and answer them like in whatever order you want, or just go through the story and answer them as they come up. Or just be like, you know what, Jay, just shut up and listen to the story.
Yeah, Jay, fuck you. Sorry.
No, you're good. It's been a long day.
All right. Well, those are great questions. But the question that I'm going to start with, the question that I think is the most burning to me right now,
Mm-hmm.
is how did he end up over 2,000 miles away?
Okay.
What led up to these moments? Well, it all started 6 days before his death. So he died, he was discovered on July 11th, 1996.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of this craziness started previously in that summer, specifically on Friday, July 5th.
Okay.
So as July of 1996 neared, friends and family of Blair Adams started to notice behavior that was unlike him. Frantic, almost panicked, um, and just his demeanor was not good. Wild mood swings, lots of fear, and Blair's mother, Sandra Edwards, of course, was concerned. So,
And
of
he
course,
wasn't married, right?
no, not married,
Okay.
no. Um, and a quote that Sandra, his mother, actually said was, "Something was obviously very much the matter. He hadn't been sleeping well. Something was wrong. I asked him numerous times what was wrong, and he said, 'I don't think I should tell you about it.' And to this day, I don't know what it is."
Wait, did he not tell anyone?
No, he didn't. The only thing that he did on
Blair!
on Friday, July 5th, was he withdrew almost all of the money from his bank account.
Of course.
He emptied all of the valuables, gold, jewelry, all that stuff
Yeah.
from his safe deposit box. And then he um, tried to make his way into the U.S.
Okay. Also,
Yeah.
a detail that I kind of just processed. They didn't take any valuables from him.
No, they didn't, Jay.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, he tried to cross the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So he tried to go into the U.S. Via a ferry, like a ferry boat. He
Hmm.
just pretty much tried to drive onto it
Yeah.
from Victoria, one of the like neighboring like island cities right on the border. Tried to go into Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, he had a bunch of cash on him. He did not have a return
Oh.
ticket,
Yep.
and he was a single white man. So US immigration officials were like, "Yeah,
No.
you're probably a drug trafficker." And they denied him entry.
Okay.
So,
You
um,
know, I can see why they would do that.
mhm,
They were just doing their job.
mhm. So that was July 5th. I mean, great work by those officials, right? Like
Yeah.
it's probably a good thing they didn't let him in the States.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so after that though, he took some times, he drove around. He took a trip to Courtenay, British Columbia, another nearby city. He visited his uncle. Um, and he stayed in his country for the next 3 days.
And did he tell his uncle anything?
His uncle wasn't even there.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
He visited his uncle who wasn't home.
Yep.
Okay, wow. So much for
This
visiting
guy.
family.
Yeah.
Okay. So he spent 3 days there.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, on
He
July 8th, he would drive to his work, his construction site, and he would quit on the spot. He would demand his last paycheck, and he would leave.
Yeah.
July 8th was the last time that he was seen, or at least by his family in a way, by people that knew
Friends,
him.
coworkers. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, July 9th, the next day, um, he would again try to cross the border. He simply tried to walk through. Like
Okay.
he literally just tried to walk through what was it? The Pacific Highway border crossing. Um,
Hmm.
he was caught by Canadian Border Patrol officers who apparently noted that Adams had scratches covering his hands, his legs. He also matched the description of a man who is involved in vehicle theft. Um,
Oh,
but they, what's the word?
they
They like
released
detained
him?
him or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, they detained him. They figured out he wasn't involved, and then they released him. Um,
Uh-huh.
but this meant that once again he was denied entry into the U.S.
Yeah.
The next day,
Was he
go ahead.
actually involved in that car robbery?
I don't believe so. I mean,
Okay.
according to all of the information out there and
He
from what
just
the
matched
Border
the
Patrol officers,
description, but
he
he
just matched the
wasn't.
description, and there
Okay.
was like the car was found nearby to the
Okay.
area. So like, I'm sure they would have detained anybody who like relatively matched the description.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Question
that
them. Yeah.
crazy of a thing. Um, but he was not discouraged. He needed he
To leave the
needed to
country.
get into the US. He needed to leave the country.
Yeah.
So the next day, July 10th would come by, and he finally managed to do it. He had gone to the Vancouver International Airport. He drove there in his own car. And
Uh-huh.
at the airport, he rented a Nissan Altima, a rental car.
Oh, okay.
He drove that rental car straight through the border. I mean, the border officials, they just let him through. Um,
Okay.
he may have had a passport, but one was not found on him.
Okay.
However, it's really not that uncommon for US officials to just let Canadians in because
Yeah.
there's such like a close relationship,
Yeah. The reason I was asking about the passport was because the German aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, is he gonna go to the U.S. and then fly to Germany or something? Because I was like, why would he
Yeah.
need German money if he's going to the U.S.?
Well, that's what the plan seemed like.
Okay.
Because when he did cross into Seattle, he would go to the Seattle Tacoma Airport. Very nice airport, by the way, one of my favorites. Um, and that's when he would purchase a round trip ticket to Frankfurt, Germany.
Round?
Round trip. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was gonna just think just one-way ticket.
Yeah. So he's planning this trip to Frankfurt, Germany, right? And what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think he would do that? What connection does he have to Germany?
I think he pissed someone off.
He could
I
have.
don't I don't know who he pissed off. And I'm thinking that he's probably gonna have to pay them back, and that's why he took out all that money. Either that, or he's
That's
gonna
actually
like
a really good theory. What?
either that, or he's gonna go out and just like I don't know, try to like live off the grid.
Hmm.
But I don't know why it would be Germany.
Hmm.
Was he still in touch with that German woman that he met?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so. Yes.
That's another possible theory. Maybe he was gonna go
Mm-hmm.
talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she was connected to someone that he pissed off. I don't know. This
Great
Blair.
theories. No, seriously,
Uh,
yeah. Um,
I wish he told someone or wrote something down.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Diary journal. Like if you find this, I'm probably dead.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, you're sort of on the right track. Because um, there was a lot of evidence to support this, that he likely was going to go see this girl, right? He knew her. The officials, the investigators for this case, they figured that out. Um, but Blair never even actually went.
Yeah.
The very same day, not even a couple hours later, he went up to he after he purchased this ticket, he requested a refund and he never went on this trip,
Wow.
saying that he was there to meet somebody, but they got sick and so now he couldn't.
Did he buy another ticket anywhere else or just a refund and took off?
He did. He then bought a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C.
Oh, not even Tennessee. Okay.
No. Washington, D.C. What was his purpose there? Why did
Sir,
he need
you
to go
can't
to
just
Washington,
walk in.
D.C.?
Yeah. Okay. I
And
wonder.
why did he purchase a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C. that cost about $770 when he could have purchased a round-trip ticket for $350? Why did
Ah.
he insist on buying that one-way ticket?
That's a big change though, because it was going to be a round trip to Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and it went from a round trip to a one way to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My thought originally, when you said that he asked for a refund, it's one of those movie scenes where he's like ready to board the plane, and then like whoever's following him, like he sees them at the airport and he panics and he's like, I need a refund. And then he just drives away. But the
Oh
fact that he
my
stayed at the
God.
airport and got another
Yeah.
ticket makes me think that something else happened.
I like that theory. Out of all the
Listen,
ones I've read so far, I actually really like that. What?
I don't know anything about this case. Like I'm just throwing shots in the dark.
Huh. Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm sure that was probably like a plot line in like some movie or TV show where like they're at the airport and like whoever's following them bumps
Hmm.
into them and then they like change their plans last minute.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, he did change his plans last minute. He purchased that round trip ticket for $1,600, by the way, to Frankfurt, Germany. He got it refunded. He purchased that ticket to Washington, D.C.,
Hmm.
and then he flew there. He arrived in Washington, D.C. Um, sometime that night on July 10th. Um, and then what he did is once he got to the airport, he rented another vehicle. It was a Toyota Camry. Um,
Do we know like if he was carrying like luggage like for multiple days or did he just
mhm.
take like the money and that was it?
From what
Like
it seems like, it does not seem like he carried any luggage with him.
so he was just traveling light.
Just with the money and those valuables.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so he arrives in Washington, D.C. at the Dulles Airport. He
Hmm.
rents this Toyota Camry. It's about 6:45 in the morning at this point. And then what does he do? He takes that Toyota Camry, he drives 500 miles east over to Tennessee. What's up,
This
Jay?
man 500 miles.
Hmm.
Also Did you say east?
East.
I don't know my geography.
Me neither.
Oh.
That's why I'm going to take a geography class this coming term. um,
um,
what's up?
no, I'm just saying don't like traveling. I mean, I like traveling, but driving 100 miles, like driving down to LA is already tough on its own. Driving
Hmm.
500 miles, that seems a little extreme.
Oh, it
Of
is.
course, he was of course being quote unquote followed. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm sorry. This man, I'm starting to question whether this man was actually being followed or whether there was something psychologically like mentally going on with him.
Yeah. And that is a part of the theories about this, which I'll get into. Like, they're not big theories or a lot of them, but there are some that we'll get into. Um, but yeah, the general consensus is that none of this makes sense, right? Like,
No.
he starts in Canada. He eventually makes his way into the US. Then he's going to go to Germany. Nope. Now he's in Washington, D.C. You think he's going to stay there? No. Immediately drives over to Tennessee.
Hmm.
Now he gets to Knox County, Tennessee, sometime, that night, July 10th. And the first reported sighting of him, it was about 5:30 p.m. It was in Knoxville, a city there. He was at a gas station, a BP gas station. I don't know,
Okay.
kind of funny. Um,
That they have that detail.
uh-huh.
I mean, I'm. Is that the only gas station that they have records of him?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So he
weird.
wasn't he wasn't really seeing it. It was that
No,
one gas station.
because 500 miles, you have to stop for gas multiple
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
But the fact that I don't know, the routes
Hmm.
that he took or anything, I don't know where he
Hmm.
stopped for gas.
Um, you mentioned, maybe he wasn't in his right mind, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
something was going on. And I think this next little thing really does point to sort of that direction.
Paranoia. Yeah.
So he gets to this gas station is where he's seen it. It's about 5:30 p.m. Now, Adams, Blair, he gets out, he goes up to the clerk inside the gas station and says, "My car's not working." Um, Clerk goes out to check, doesn't seem like anything's wrong. So they call a interstate repair service driver, a man named Gerald Sapp.
Hmm.
So Sapp arrives. He does a full diagnostic check on this car. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But Adams insists that something is wrong. It's not starting. This car is not working. And that's when Sap, the repair driver,
Yeah.
realizes that Adams is trying to use the key for the Nissan Altima that he rented back in Vancouver for this
Oh.
Toyota Camry that he is currently driving. Not that big of a deal. Sap
Hmm.
says you're using the wrong key.
How,
It's not the
how
right
does
one.
he react to that?
Adam says no, this is the right key. This is the one that I need. Sap says no. He even recalled that he actually asked him to look in his pockets. He had to have the key in his pockets. He drove there in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Adams refuses to look into his pockets and then leaves,
How
abandons the
did he?
car.
Oh, like he abandoned. I was gonna be like, how did he leave if the key doesn't work? He abandoned the car. Okay,
Yeah. Um, so he leaves.
that's
Yeah. Go ahead.
this. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if this man has been. See, I don't know if this man is suffering from something, is being followed, or simply was driving 500 miles, did not get enough sleep, and was just not thinking logically either. So it could be a combination of
I
things.
think it's a
Maybe,
combination of like a lot of it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how long that man was driving. He probably
Yeah.
slept in the car as well when he was like pulling to the sides of
Yeah, who
things.
knows? So Gerald Sapp, in an interview by late in a later interview by the investigating Knox County Sheriff's Office, Sapp said, "quote He didn't appear to be messed up. He didn't appear to be on drugs, but his mind wasn't functioning correctly for some reason. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, that's the
but
wrong key. No, it's
yeah,
not.
but Sapp couldn't just
Oh.
let Adams walk away, so he offered to drop him off at the nearby Fairfield Inn Hotel.
Hmm. Did he take up that offer?
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He did. So he gets dropped off at the Fairfield Inn. It's about 7:30 p.m. or so. So, um, the apparently according to the hotel security camera footage, it showed that in about the span of an hour, Blair looked frantic, a little bit panicked, paranoid almost, and he would consistently loiter outside. He would walk in and out of the lobby before even really talking to anybody or paying
Yeah.
for the room. But yeah, it was about around that time, 7:30 p.m., when he finally purchased the ticket for his hotel room.
Hmm.
Um, he gave his money. The clerk went to give him his change, and when she looked up, he was
He
walking
was
out the
gone.
door. He was gone.
Did
Yeah.
he like just give her like a large bill and was basically like keep the change and just walked away?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I guess just keep the change, whatever. Um, so yeah, he then makes his way into that hotel room,
Uh-huh.
is what you would think.
Blair.
But
Ugh.
he walks away. He
I
never
wanna
even
like
enters the room that he bought.
what? Why would I wanna punch this man so bad and just ask him?
Punch him! He's being chased.
Is he?
Oh, you know.
I don't even know what's happening with this man. Like, at first I'm like, okay, maybe he pissed someone off. And now he's not being so reasonable, especially with the car key. The car key is a detail that's really throwing me off. And now Blair's just really getting on my nerves. And I'm like, sir, yeah, go ahead. Carry on. I do not endorse violence, by the way.
That was the last time that Blair Adams was seen.
No.
It was about 7:38 p.m. on the night of July 10th, 1996. Because then, the next day, as we know, he would be discovered around 7:30 in the morning, not too far away.
Okay, that was my next question. How far was the inn from where he was discovered?
Um, yeah, not far away. I don't have the exact numbers, but there actually is like a little like aerial map that shows their
Mhm.
locations, and it's not too far.
Okay.
Um, so I mentioned, he was found with all of the money, all of the cash around him.
Hmm.
He was found half naked, his pants ripped off,
His shirt
his
ripped
shirt.
off.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was also found the keys to the Toyota Camry that
What do
supposedly
you know?
he, didn't want to look for.
Uh-huh. Because the other key was the right one.
Exactly. But he was also found with cuts, abrasions to his hands, blood on his arms, almost like he was trying to fend off an attack.
Okay, I was gonna ask, were they looking like they were self-inflicted or that he was attacked?
No, it looked like he was attacked. There was a
Okay.
wound on his forehead. Police, they thought it was from like a crowbar.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh. Oh.
Hmm. But according to the autopsy, the official cause of death was sepsis resulting from the rupturing of his abdomen. So from a strong abdominal blow,
Yeah.
and that's eventually what killed him.
So
So
this
he
man,
died probably a slow, painful death, and it makes it even sadder to think how he, grabbed
the
the
shoe
shoe
as a
almost as a last bit
little
of comfort.
comfort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blair, who did this to you?
And that's what it was, right? People didn't believe him. Why? How would he have been followed?
Yeah.
Who actually was following him? Who was going to kill him? And nobody thought any of that would happen
Till it
until it
did.
did. But it raises
How?
the question, like, did someone follow him?
Mhm.
Was it a random encounter? Was it something, worse that people really hadn't even considered before?
Mhm.
Now, the initial investigation, it was originally seen as some sort of sex related incident because, his pants were taken
Pants were
off and
down, shirt was
whatsoever.
ripped. Yeah.
But um, there was nothing really found to support that. The only piece of DNA evidence that was found was actually a single strand of a long hair, so a woman's hair likely, just
Oh.
in Blair's hand.
So kind of like he fought back?
Kind of like he fought back, yeah.
Okay.
But there was never any more information.
Did they test that hair?
No, they did, but it didn't come up to anything. No
Nothing on the
matches in the
on the
database,
Okay.
whatever.
How soon after his body was found was his family informed?
Um,
Cuz did he have ID on him?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Cuz I'm just curious of
Hmm.
if he
I
had
mean,
ID on him
he
or
had travel receipts on him, and
Mhm.
so I'm
They
sure
used
some of
that
those
too.
probably had his name on them
Fair.
or
Okay.
something. Um, Not entirely sure. That was never looked up. But
Fair.
so this caught the attention, right? The Knox County Sheriff's Department was the lead investigator for this, and they tried everything they could, but there was no evidence.
Yeah.
They interviewed everybody who had a connection. They interviewed his girlfriend from
Yeah,
Germany.
because this reminds me a lot of when they found Alyssa Lamb. She was a Canadian person
Hmm.
who died in the US. So of course
Hmm.
there was an investigation carried. I
Hmm.
assume same thing was happening with Blair. He was a Canadian man who was found dead in Tennessee.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Check out the Elisa Lam case if you haven't. It's one of our previous episodes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So there were no known suspects, right? The police at first maybe suspected that it was a robbery gone wrong, but like you already mentioned, everything was there. Nothing
Yeah.
wasn't even taken.
Gold.
No,
Money.
literally diamonds, gold, jewelry, $4,000 in cash. None of it was missing. Well,
Yeah.
$110 of it was missing, but that's because
Okay.
somebody from the construction crew took
We're
some money that found him. But the police
Oh,
managed to get it
okay.
back later on.
Okay.
um, they thought it might have been drug related, those the whole drug trafficking thing, but there was no evidence to support that.
Hmm.
Um, they even looked into it being a potential just mishap. Maybe he encountered a prostitute or a pimp, some type of sex worker in the area.
Hmm.
Um, and then it, turned bad. Um,
Was there I don't know if there was any records of him involved with like sex workers in the past, was there?
no, no, there wasn't.
Okay, so once again, they're also like shooting in the dark.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I mean, still to this day, there's nothing. It is still a cold case, still something that is being looked into. I mean, I don't know how effectively looked into, but it's still being looked into by the Knox County Sheriff's Department.
Hmm.
Um,
Is there any like comments or interviews from his family, friends, or his girlfriend?
yeah, the police did interview the girlfriend in Germany. She said he had not contacted her. She had no clue he ever even planned or bought a ticket to Germany. So
Okay.
she had no involvement in it whatsoever, and they moved on pretty quick from that.
Okay.
There was, of course, interviews by his friends and family, and that's where we got a little bit of what I've talked about already. You know, they noticed his frantic behavior in the
Hmm.
summer of 1996. Um, the mom asking what was wrong, Adam saying, you know, I don't think I should tell you about it. Um,
Yeah.
apparently, he also did express the words to his family, they're trying to kill me. But, you know, nothing of that was ever believed.
I don't have kids, but if my child told me something like that, I would sit them down and have them tell me.
No, seriously.
Even if I didn't believe them, I'm like, you're gonna get it off your chest, even if I think you're crazy.
I don't know.
Wow.
Um, there was a later interview, sometime around in 2017, I believe, 2016, somewhere around there. It
Hmm.
was an interview of his mom, Sandra, and apparently she knew that he was leaving and going
Hmm.
to the US.
Okay.
Um, she said that Adams Blair was actually traveling down there to attend the 1996 Summer Olympic Games in Atlanta. And the games were to begin on July 19th, 8 days after his body was discovered, and also more than 200 miles away from Knox County, where his body was discovered. Um, not sure why. Not sure why she knew that. Not sure how true it was, and the police were not sure why she never brought that up in the initial case.
Yeah, that's so she mentioned that years later, right?
Years later, yeah.
That would be like a important detail to bring up during the initial investigation.
It would be, but I don't know.
I don't know. This is one of those cases that definitely has more questions than answers.
It is, yeah.
So, uh, thanks, Kai.
Yeah, of course. There's this little Reddit thread I kind of want to read.
Uh-huh.
It's
Go
short.
for it.
It's someone asking just how are we able to explain the mystery of what happened to Blair Adams? Um, of course, there was that strand of hair that was found. Of course,
Hmm.
they believed it may have been to a woman, and potentially like a sex worker, right? And so
Yeah.
this one user, Utena Mage, said, I'm so stuck on the hair. Is it possible someone was wearing a wig? They can be made out of human hair
Oh,
too. It wasn't
yeah.
established yet, but Locks of Love, I assume a wig maker,
Company.
yeah, it takes
Yeah.
a minimum of 10 inches of donated hair for wigs. Plus, wigs wouldn't have roots at all. And as someone with long hair who pulled one out while typing to see, even pulling one single strand or two, three together would have a root or some type of scalp tissue. Anything they could test for DNA. I don't know what killer knows their hair was pulled in the struggle and then thinks to cut the root away as part of evidence cleanup, but it wasn't there to begin with. What implications does a wig bring to the theories? Foul play by assassin, a stalker in disguise, someone slowly messing with him for 3 months and getting closer and closer until he felt like running was the only option.
Yeah.
But a disguise could 100% help his stalker blend into places he had never been, and it was a nightmarish few months that led into some planned murder. Foul play with a sexual motive is so sinister, like someone wearing a disguise to lure him out. If the wig changes the pair of killers from a woman and a man to two men, that adds enough overwhelm for that brutal of a scene that was left.
Yeah.
And they end by saying, someone was really after him. That's all I feel for sure. But that hair detail made me feel uneasy.
Mm-hmm. The fact, yeah, the fact that he was found with the key to the car that he said that wasn't starting, that all the valuables were still left there, and yeah, I think the combination of the way that he was found is definitely he didn't just he didn't casually just get jumped or anything like that. Because otherwise, I think that they would have at least taken something from him. Also,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it was kind of violent that the way that they took him out.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like with some type of blunt object, right?
Yeah.
And it was just a literal beating and then probably a final like blow to the abdomen that just ruptured everything and caused him
Mm-hmm.
to bleed out and die from like infection and like septic shock essentially. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, um crazy case when I was reading about it, because truly what drives somebody to go to this length to
Mm-hmm.
escape something that to this day we're not sure if it even exists, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was mental health, maybe it was emotions running high, maybe it was drugs, or maybe it literally was somebody after him. And I don't think we'll ever know.
Uh, the sheriff department has to step up their game. We need an update.
Yes, we do. Come on, Knox County. Come on, Jimmy James, I think is the sheriff's name. JJ.
If they're still in charge.
If he's still in charge. I believe he is. As of a couple of
Okay.
years ago, I think he was. But
Okay.
who knows?
Wow.
Anyway, that is the disappearance or the death of Blair Adams.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely took us, I would say, around the globe, but just around a couple
Just
states,
a
and
little bit.
a couple places.
Almost around the globe. But
Yeah, he got
know.
that ticket refunded.
I really like your theory that you brought up, though. How he like refunded it
Hmm.
to throw off whoever was chasing him. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just something that was in my head. Like once again, maybe he bumped into someone at the airport, and I was like, oh, it's that person that I've seen follow me around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, they also talked to the lady at the counter.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna buy a ticket, so I need to get it refunded.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, what happened? Only unfortunately, this man knows, and whoever the killer was.
Yeah,
Wow. Thank you.
of course. And then there's also some pictures of like the crime scene, not of like Blair, but like pictures of the evidence that was kind of found around. And it's pretty cool. So
Okay.
we'll probably post some of those pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I want to see how it was all.
Yeah.
Because I imagine it was all kind of like scattered around.
A
I
lot
don't
of it
picture
was,
all
yeah.
like in one corner. Kind
No,
of
it wasn't
like
just
all
like
over the
there.
place.
It was like scattered, is how I'm picturing it,
Okay.
at least. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of what I pictured too.
cool. All right. Well,
Cool. Thank you.
what's next, Jay?
Well, for my case, we're gonna do a little something different. It definitely falls
Okay.
under the like paranormal, uh, weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for this case, I want to start with a little introduction, a little.
A
Let me
little
paint this.
opening. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Imagine your four-year-old child looks at you in the eyes and says, "This isn't my real home. I have a husband and I have a son, and I died during childbirth."
What?
You laugh it off? You think kids say weird things, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
weird as
but
shit,
your
though.
child refuses to call you mom. And pretty soon, the kid starts recalling names, addresses, intimate memories from a life she never lived. What
What?
if they weren't just dreams, but facts?
Okay. What? Yeah, tell
So,
me more about this.
in the 1930s, in India, so we're heading to India, a young girl named Shanti Devi said exactly that.
What the
And
fuck, Shanti?
she said it with such accuracy that teachers, reporters, judges, and even Gandhi got involved. She was only 4 years old when she claimed that she had once lived as a woman named Lugdi Devi, who
Mhm.
died giving birth in a city distant called Mathura.
Okay.
And Shanti said that she left behind a husband, her son, and unfinished business. Pretty soon, more than hundreds and thousands of people came to Delhi, which is where she was living, just to see her. Not with a guru, not a ghost. They came to see a young girl. Headlines
Okay.
across the world scream, Wonder Child of India and born again the year after she died. So, this isn't really a ghost story. This is the reincarnation tale that is so detailed, so convincing that it got skeptics to be speechless.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. So I realized we actually haven't talked about reincarnation cases, so I thought, time to do that.
Oh shit, you're right. We never have.
No. So tonight we crack open one of those bizarre cases. It's really well documented. This is the story of a little girl, a past life, and a journey across lifetimes.
Okay.
So the date was December 11, 1926. Winter had settled over Delhi, and somewhere in the crowded lanes, in a modest home tucked between crumbling walls and neighborhoods, a young mother cried out in labor. Moments later,
Mm,
a newborn baby girl was born. Her name was Shanti Devi. Shanti meaning peace.
that's cute.
Yeah. Her father was B. Rang Bahadur Mathur. He was a respected government employee. He stood outside of the room, clutching just worried beads, whispering prayers as the midwife announced the safe arrival of his daughter. To her parents, she was a blessing. A healthy, calm, beautiful girl. She had black hair, wide eyes, and a quiet demeanor. She didn't really wail like most infants. She kind of just stared, studied, and
What?
in the early years,
So
she
weird.
one of those kids that's born
Didn't
with
like
like big
cry.
eyes.
Oh, what the fuck?
I mean, have you ever seen those babies that just have like really big eyes? That's kind of what I
Yeah.
pictured. Yeah. So in the early years of Shanti's life, there were like many other years of like pre-independence India. So I'm just to paint a picture.
Hmm.
Um, the British Raj still loom, but in her life, in her little corner of Delhi, life moved with rhythm and ritual. Street vendors called in the morning. They were selling roasted peanuts and steamed chai. Neighbors passed buckets
Mm,
of water
yum.
from rooftop to rooftop. Kind of what you would picture. Now, Shanti was polite, soft spoken, and unusually mature for her age. Now, she was also the kind of child who rarely misbehaved. She didn't really throw tantrums or fights with other children. Instead, she would often sit beside her mother watching her cook, and she would occasionally make suggestions that make the adults raise their eyebrows, like which spices to use or how to fold the dough in a particular way.
Hmm.
How does she know that? Her mother once whispered to a neighbor. I never taught her that. She spoke with odd clarity, and sometimes she seemed to be distracted, like she was listening for something or someone else. Um, Her mother often found her standing by the window in the early morning, standing off towards the east. But the first real shift came when she was 4 years old. It happened quietly, as many supernatural things do. Over breakfast one morning, as her mother was serving her breakfast, Shanti looked up at her mother and she said, "This isn't my real home."
Girl.
Her mother blinked and she said, "What do you mean, Betta?" And she said, "I have another family," Shanti said. "A husband, a son, and my house is in Mathura," she said. And she said it with certainty. She didn't say it like it was play pretend, like she was saying it with a certainty almost as if a child was like, "There's a puppy." I was like, "Oh, I have a family." The blah, blah, blah. Um, there was also instances when she was offered food. And she would say things like, "I used to take such sweets at my house in Mathura." And at first, her parents laughed it off. Children say odd things.
Mm.
After all, perhaps she overheard something. Maybe a neighbor told her a story. And when her mother would dress her, she would begin to describe how she would used to dress herself in her previous life in Mathura as
Dude.
well. Yeah, so this is your 4-year-old girl. But the days continued to pass, and the strange comments continued, growing more and more specific, more intimate in nature. She spoke of a man, a cloth merchant, a house painted yellow, and a temple near her former home. She also talked about the day she gave birth and the moment she died at the age of 23.
What the fuck?
How do you handle this when you have a 4-year-old telling you all this?
Uh, I don't know. Like at first I would brush it off, you know, I'd be like, "You're playing, haha."
Mm-hmm.
But like after it's repeated and she keeps on saying these things and all these details, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Who are you? Did you actually live this past life? What?
Once again, when your child is 4, I don't think your child's in school when they're at 4. Um, but once again, she also like recalled the pain, like the scent of burning camphor, and the way that her husband cried when she was taken away. Um, and the perhaps one of the most haunting details, she spoke of her son, her baby, the one that she never got to hold.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wait. That means like he's alive. If
Hmm.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry. I don't want to
No,
spoil anything.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Say something.
No, it's just 'cause, like, okay, if she had a baby, but then she died, that means that baby, if the story is real, that baby should be alive, like right now,
Hmm.
potentially, and like they could go to try to
And
confirm the story, whatever. Yeah.
we'll get into it because
Yes.
this is a like out of all the stories I've like heard of, this is definitely one of the ones that just blew my mind in so many different ways.
No, for sure.
Um, and when her parents asked her like the name for her husband, she bashfully said that she would be able to recognize him, but she never gave his name out. And it's because it's a well-known custom in India that the Hindu wives don't utter the name of their
Uh,
husbands out of sheer
okay.
modesty. So this is a 4-year-old, like just having all this knowledge that I was like, how?
It's crazy.
So at this point, it no longer felt like a game. This little girl, Shanti Devi, remembered a life that she'd never lived. And soon, these memories would take her back to a city she's never been to meet a man she claimed to have loved once, and to uncover the truth that would defy logic. Ah!
Dude, okay.
So, as Shanti Devi grew older, her certainty only deepened. While most children clung to their parents for comfort, Shanti kept an emotional distance from hers. She was never cruel to her parents, she was never disrespectful, but she refused to call them Ma and Babuji, like the other
Oh,
children. So these
it
parents,
must be
they're like,
sad as a
are
parent.
yeah, exactly. I can only imagine. I was like, she doesn't call us like mom or dad. She referred to them simply as the lady and the man.
It's kind of funny. It's also really
Yeah, no,
disrespectful. Like, what?
yeah, listening to it, it is funny, but imagining like your child call you that, I'm like, why? Don't know. Like, I'm your mom, I'm your
Yeah.
dad, blah blah blah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, to her parents, like who loved her dearly, it was like they were being haunted by their daughter, who like looked at them, but they didn't recognize her. Um, so every time her mother reached out with tenderness, like Shanti just pulled away. When her father tried to scold her for being silly, she'd say things like, "My real husband would never speak to me like that."
Wow.
Imagine hearing that from your 8 year old.
Wow.
At this point, she's 8 years old. So they'd start when she was 4, and when she was 8, it just continued. Um, 4 years had passed. Tension grew. Neighbors started whispering. Some said that the girl was cursed. Others said that she was blessed.
Hmm.
But everyone agreed that something strange was happening in that house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, her life at school is interesting. Shanti she was a good student. She was sharp. Her handwriting was neat. Her answers were correct, and her memory was really good. But she rarely played with other children. She didn't seem interested in games or stories unless they were about families or temples or childbirth, which is strange for an 8-year-old. And then teachers began to notice her peculiar way of speaking, like she was older than her years. When children wrote papers about their pets or favorite foods, Shanti once turned in a story about dying in childbirth.
That's insane. Like being a
Yeah.
teacher and reading this paper about, oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're reading about dogs and favorite foods, and it's like,
And
I
then
died
this
during
girl's
childbirth.
death from child. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. She told her classmates that she had a husband, that
Sure,
her
that didn't
baby
go
was
well.
taken away from her, and that she used to live in a yellow house in Mathura. So one day, when a geography teacher brought up the city of Mathura in a lesson, Shanti's eyes lit up. "That's where my home is," she said. The class laughed, but the teacher didn't.
Why?
So, among the instructors, one teacher, Mr. Bishad Chand, he was a great uncle of the girl. He began to listen more closely. He watched the way that she spoke about her past life with like absolute conviction. She didn't have like a shred of doubt, just the truth, almost as if it happened yesterday. And honestly, Kai, you listen to my weird theories with that same face sometimes. Could be belief or could be mild concern. So that's fine.
No, no, no. I'm just trying to see where this is going because it's like I'm glad somebody finally started listening and trying to piece this together, what was actually happening. So, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So the teacher, he asked her a question, multiple questions. Where did you live? What was the house like? And Shanti answered all of them in detail.
Wow. Wow.
She described alleyways, the temple near her home, even the layout of a hidden money box her husband once kept beneath a floorboard.
Don't tell me they found that. Like,
Well,
oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
at first, the teacher thought that it was some elaborate fantasy. But day by day, the girl never strayed from her story. She never hesitated. The details didn't change. She never added anything strange. There was no inconsistencies. And then one day, the teacher told her that if Shanti told him his husband's name, that he would take her to Mathura. So
Good.
that's when she whispered her husband's name.
Good.
And she got close to him and she said, Kedar Nat Chubi. And that was the moment that the teacher made a decision.
What?
If that's a moment that the teacher made a decision.
Okay.
If there was even a chance that what she was saying is true,
True. They
he
needed to
had
find
to
out.
find out.
Yes. Yes. Thank you,
So
teacher.
he picked up a pen and he helped her draft a letter. and he mailed the letter to the man named Kedarnath in the city of Mathura. He didn't expect a reply,
But he
but he
got
got
one.
one. Yep. The letter was sent with low expectations. After all, what are the chances of a cloth merchant from another city that would respond to an 8-year-old girl claiming to be his dead wife?
Yeah.
So, with a short time, the letter reached Kedar, a real man living in Mathura, exactly as Shanti described,
Okay.
a merchant who sold clothing,
Okay.
a man who, just as she said, had lost his
Lost
wife,
his wife.
Shanti Devi, nearly 9 years earlier, shortly after she gave birth to their son.
Oh my God. Nearly 9 years earlier. And that's
Yep.
about how old?
She was 8 years old at this point. Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
And the details of the letter left this man shaken. At first, Kedar thought that this was a cruel joke, a prank, or a hoax from someone who knew about his tragedy.
Yeah.
But
Valid.
as he read the letter again and again, he began to feel unease. There were specific details about his late wife's habit. Whoever wrote this letter knew things that no
New.
stranger could possibly know. He admitted, yes, his wife had died nearly 9 years ago, shortly after giving birth to their son. Her name, Lugdi Devi, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once he ran a shop near the temple, just as Shanti described.
Mm-hmm.
He even admitted his wife used to make aloo puri, potato cakes, his favorite dish, just like the girl claimed. So this was all in the letter that
Dude.
he sent. Yes.
It's all like tracking. It's
Yes.
oh my God.
Still, Kedar wasn't ready to jump on a train to Delhi just yet.
Just go.
I mean, how would you feel? Like, it's hard. Like, I want to believe it, but at the same time, I was like, what if it's someone just playing a prank on me?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but if I was him, I would have to find out.
Oh,
Like,
same. Yeah.
yeah.
So instead of jumping on a train and heading to Delhi, he decided to send his brother,
What?
a man who already lived in Delhi, to investigate.
Okay, I guess that works.
And the brother would bring a friend, planning a test for the girl. The plan was simple. They would not reveal their identities.
But if
Yep.
she recognized him, then
instead-
it confirmed.
Yep, they would introduce themselves as someone else. And they would see if the children would be fooled.
Dude, good plan, actually.
So the brother arrived at Shanti's home unannounced, pretending to be a friend of the family. The plan was to test the girl, see if this was just some parlor trick being played by an opportunist. No one told Shanti who he was. The moment the man entered the room, Shanti's entire demeanor changed.
No.
Her face lit up. She ignored the decoy and turned directly to the brother, and she said, "That's Kedar's brother." Without being told, without hesitation, she said, "That's my brother-in-law." Everyone in the room froze. Yep. This is an 8-year-old.
That's insane.
Yeah. She
Oh.
described intimate details, things she couldn't have possibly known. She spoke of rooms in the house, of conversations she had with him, of how he behaved when she was pregnant. Her words were calm, detailed, no guessing, no vague impressions, memories. And when he returned to his brother in Mathura, he had only one thing to say: she knew everything.
Dude.
That was the moment Kedar made up his mind.
He had to go.
He had to go. He boarded the train to Delhi, and this time he had to find out.
Yeah.
He went with a few trusted friends.
Smart.
If the girl's story was true, she would be able to recognize them without being told who they were. He was not going to let them know that he was coming. He didn't announce his arrival. No reporters, no crowds, just a man returning to the ghost of a past he had long buried. And Shanti, she had no warning. No one ever told her that he was coming.
Yeah.
He arrived. The moment that he entered the room, Shanti lowered her gaze respectfully, just as a traditional Indian wife would, and then she fell at her feet, the ancient custom of paying respect to one's husband. She addressed him not as a stranger, but as someone she's known for many years. My husband, she simply said. Kedar's not one of Kedar's friend later said she behaved towards him with modesty and affection of a married woman. And when she saw her son, she rushed forward and held him with tears in her eyes. Yep.
Oh my God. Why is this sad? Like, why is this actually sad?
So, one more thing that happened is that Kedar had remarried.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I can't blame him. It's been 9 years, right?
The thing is, he promised Shanti that he wouldn't remarry.
Okay, this makes it.
Mm-hmm. So, he brought her son, his wife, and some friends to come visit her. And Shanti, she ignored his current wife. She did not greet her, did not even acknowledge her. As far as Shanti was concerned, that woman had no place in the life she once lived. She refused to acknowledge his current wife, and instead she asked him why he remarried so soon.
Patty, it's been 9 years. That's not like that soon.
Well, I mean, he did make a promise, though.
He did make a promise. This is true.
She said she still loved him, that she never got to say goodbye. Of course, the room was silent. People cried. Even Kedar, once a skeptic, his hands started to tremble.
Of course, yeah.
And then came the next step. He would have to test her privately, thoroughly, because if this child was truly his wife reborn, she would know things that even his closest friends did not. So Shanti and Kedar were given a few moments alone. The details of what they said were sparse, but what is known is that when they returned, Kedar was pale and visibly shaken.
Dude, this is her.
Yep, he confirmed that the child told him secrets only his late wife would have known.
Wow.
He whispered, I can't explain it, but I believe her.
Wow.
Yeah. For Shanti, this wasn't a performance. She wasn't pleased that people were believing her. She wasn't boastful or excited. She was calm, confident, almost relieved, as if someone might finally be after being heard. She didn't want validation. She didn't want attention. She wanted home, Mathura. She wanted to return to her past life, to the house she lived in, to the people she remembered, to the boy she never got to raise. Take me back, she said to her parents. Please let me go. But her parents refused. They told her she was their daughter, that her life was here, that the man she called husband was a stranger, and that this fantasy, this obsession had gone far enough.
I mean, I get it. Like, I get both sides. Like, even with all of this evidence that, like, she actually is this reincarnation.
It's like
at the end of the day, she's still like an 8-year-old. She's still their daughter. Wow.
Her mother said, "You're Shanti, not Lugdi." But Shanti didn't argue. She didn't throw tantrums.
Wow.
She simply withdrew. She became even quieter than before. She stopped speaking to her mother entirely. At night, she would sit near the window watching the direction of Mathura, whispering underneath her breath. Sometimes her parents would hear her humming lullabies that they never taught her, songs from a region that they've never visited. And she would refuse to wear certain colors, saying Lugdi wouldn't wear them in mourning. So she also insisted on using words and gestures that were traditional for married women.
No.
She avoided sitting beside other men, except Kedar. And most heartbreakingly, She began to speak of Mathura not as a place she missed, but as a place she was being kept from. They won't let me go home, she told her teacher one day. But I remember every corner. I know my way back. I don't need anyone to take me. I could walk there myself.
And she
I'm starting to get like
did.
teary eye.
Okay.
No, she didn't walk back herself.
Oh.
Mathura, it's almost 100 miles away.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So walking there is like
out of the question.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, word of her story had already begun to spread. Newspapers were hungry for headlines. They called her Wonder Child of India. In temples, priests debated whether her soul had truly returned. In universities, scholars argued the meaning of reincarnation. And crowded households and families whisper about the little girl who remembered her death. Pretty soon, crowds began gathering outside of her home. Pilgrims came to see her, hoping to get a glimpse of her, to ask her for her blessings, to touch their feet of the girl they believed had walked the cycle of rebirth and come back unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
But through it all, Shanti remained serene. She wasn't seeking a spotlight. She wasn't trying to convince anyone. She had one request.
She just wanted to go home.
Please take me home. And where her parents refused, she did something bold.
Fuck. Okay.
She began to refuse meals.
Uh.
An 8-year-old. She stopped talking to most adults. She started writing down everything she remembered in detail. Every name, every street corner, every temple. She documented her life as Shanti Devi, as if building a case. A case she was prepared to present to anyone who would listen.
She
And
was
someone did
desperate.
listen.
You know, she
Yep.
wanted to go home. She wanted to go to who she loved. And you were going to say someone finally listened?
Yeah. Word of Shanti's story finally reached Mahatma Gandhi himself.
No way.
Yep, the father of India, the man who had led an entire nation towards independence. He had heard,
Among other things, but yeah.
definitely. He had heard of the little girl who claimed to have lived another life and died before. So he was intrigued and perhaps maybe a little unsettled. We really don't know.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that he organized an official commission of inquiry.
Oh.
It was a small town investigation, and this was serious. Gandhi's
Yeah, of
commission
course.
was composed of 15 prominent individuals, respected lawyers, scholars, spiritual leaders, and educators. Neutral parties, skeptics, believers, men of reason. Their task was simple: interview the girl, visit Mathura, investigate every detail, and determine once and for all, was this reincarnation or delusion? So the commission made their way to Delhi. They were uncertain of what they would find, but Shanti Devi was ready. She had waited her whole life for someone to take her seriously. And now the world was watching. The commission arrived in Delhi in the spring of 1937. 15 men, each chosen for their experience, their intellect, and their skepticism. They weren't here to indulge a fantasy. They were here to
find the
uncover the
truth.
truth. Exactly. So among them were Babu Raj Chakodorkar. I'm going to butcher some of the names.
Sick name.
He was a respected investigator. There was also Lala Dampat Rai, a journalist lawyer.
Sick name.
Rai Bahadur Panal Mehta, a former prince advisor and scholar of Indian philosophy.
Oh shit.
And-
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So all high up status individuals that were put together,
Yeah.
and several members of the All Indian Anti-Communal Board. They all pride themselves on keeping religion and politics grounded in reality. So these people weren't mystics, they were rationalists, legal minds, and educators. They were handpicked because they were skeptics and spiritualists alike. So when the commission arrived at her home in Delhi, they expected a shy and possibly confused child. What they found
No.
was a girl sitting cross-legged, waiting, calm, composed, and completely unafraid.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah, she didn't hesitate to answer their questions. She told them her husband's name. She repeated the details that she had shared for years. The name of her past self, Lugdi Devi, the town of Mathura, the home's layout, the neighborhood temple, the local dialect. She even described specific renovations that had been made to the house after her death, things she would have no way of knowing. The commission was struck not only by what she said, but by the way she said it. There were no contradictions. She wasn't stammering, just certainty.
She was
She didn't
confident.
offer,
Yeah.
yep. She didn't offer details like someone trying to impress. She offered them like someone reliving.
Reliving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her past
Um,
experiences.
and after a series of lengthy interviews, the commission made their decision. They would accompany her to Mathura to verify her claims.
Good. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
So at this point, her parents were torn. On one hand, they were exhausted. Emotionally, spiritually, socially. Their home had become a circus. Crowds gathered in their front door, neighbors gawked, reporters cramped outside like she was royalty. On the other hand, she was just a child. Their child. The idea of handing their daughter over to strangers to relive a life that they had never witnessed terrified them.
Yeah.
What if it hurt her more? What if it broke her completely? Or what if she was telling the truth?
Yeah. What then?
Yeah.
You know, we have to give her up. I don't know.
But the pressure was impossible to ignore. The commission promised that they would protect her and treat her with dignity and neutrality as she deserved. Eventually, her father consented, and her mother, she wept. But they came to an agreement. Shanti would go with the commission, but the parents would also come.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So now it was time for the trip. Well, Delhi was a little bustling area. People whispered in markets and temples. They said, "Have you heard about the girl who came back from the dead? She's going to Mathura. Even Gandhi peoples are watching." Shanti was unaware that the storm had even stirred. She remained calm. She packed no bags. She asked for no comfort. She simply said, "I will take you there. I remember the way." And so, under the watchful eyes of 15 investigators, Shanti boarded the train bound for Mathura, a city she had never visited in her current life. A city
Her current
near
life.
a city nearly 100 miles south of Delhi, a city she claimed to know by heart. The journey was by train, and it took nearly 8 hours, winding through the dry plains of
Of
Uttar
India.
Pradesh. Yep. And the commission, meanwhile, watch her like hawks. They whisper among themselves, jotted notes. They were trying to ask her casual questions, trying to catch her in a lie or hesitation. But she didn't waver. "I will recognize the house," she said softly. "I'll know where to go." And then the train arrived in Mathura. When the train arrived in Mathura's junction, the commission was tense. They hadn't told her any details about where they were going in the city. No one said where Kedar Nath's house was. No names, no directions, nothing.
No info, yeah.
This was the test. Shanti stepped off the platform. She looked around. The air in Mathura was a little warmer. Temple bells rang in the distance. Crowds walked by, but she wasn't distracted. But the first incident which attracted our attention on reaching Mathura happened on that platform. The girl had hardly gone 15 paces when an elderly man wearing a typical Mathuran dress, whom she had never met before, came in front of her, mixed with a small crowd, and paused for a while. She was asked whether she could recognize him. His presence reacted. His presence reacted so quickly, and she. Hold on. This is a quote from like a newspaper article.
So,
Okay, she was being carried by a man at this point when they got off the train.
okay,
The
interesting.
Yeah. So they asked her if she recognized this man, and she came down from the man's arms. She touched the stranger's feet with a deep veneration and stood aside. And then she whispered that this was Jeth, the elder brother of her husband.
No way. Okay.
So this was all spontaneous, and everyone was left stunned and surprised. The man was Babu Ram Chube, and he was really the elder brother of Kedar.
That's crazy.
Yep. So they had a small conversation, and then he was the first person to have interactions with her in Mathura. He believed her, and then the next test was get into the temple. Once they got out of the railway station, this is another quote from the newspaper. It said, "On getting out of the railway station, we took a conveyance of our own choice, rejecting the offer of local men to use their conveyances. The girl was put in the front seat of the carriage and went ahead of all others. Necessary precautions were taken that no pedestrian should be allowed to lead the way. The driver was instructed to follow the route indicated by the girl without caring as to where she went. She led the carriage to Holy Gate, which she used to mention a landmark on the way to her house from the railway station without any difficulty.
Wow.
They allowed her to lead the way through winding alleys and unpaved streets, past familiar scents and unfamiliar faces. She pointed out turns before they reached them, not hesitantly, confidently.
Mm-hmm.
"This road leads to the marketplace," she said at one point. "We used to buy spices from there, but we must go this way." Shanti led the commission straight through dusty streets of Mathura, never pausing to ask for directions, never looking confused. She told them, "My house is near the temple." Now, the girl continued showing the way till they reached an entrance to a lane which opened into a bazaar. She stopped the carriage and then pointed out the peculiar lane that led to her alleged old house. Leaving the carriage behind, we went into the lane, Shanti still guiding the party. Here we met another surprise, when she recognized old Brahmin of about 75 years old.
Wow.
She called him father-in-law and
Wow.
instinctively
Oh.
bowed to him, touching his feet in profound veneration. So once again,
She
another man.
immediately recognized him.
Yep. Her actions were so spontaneous that it greatly moved everybody that was present on the spot.
Yeah.
Now, once again, there was some conversations. He believed her. There were details that only he would know. And they continued walking. Further up, they were able to locate the house without much of an issue. She stopped, she looked up, and she said, This is it. This is my house." But the commission hesitated because something wasn't right.
What?
She had described her former home in Delhi months earlier with confidence.
And it wasn't the same?
She said, "It's yellow, painted the color of turmeric." But the house before them was white.
Oh, well, he could have painted it in the 9 years.
Yep.
That,
So that's what happened. The commission
yeah.
thought that they caught her in a lie, and they scribbled down a few notes. But once they talked to the owners because it was being rented, they said, "Oh no, we painted it white recently." And once again, the commission was kind of shocked. They were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like it was
Oh, she
yellow."
actually is
She
right.
would
Yeah.
have no idea to know that it was painted white within the last year. So after that, she is taken to her home, to the home where she once lived. After the color of the house was confirmed, um, they brought her inside of her home, and they tried to give her another test. So they brought her inside to the heart of the home, not the kitchen, not the bedroom, the family shrine.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
So in Indian households, the puja room is sacred, a space that's reserved for daily worship, ancestors' offerings, spiritual rituals. It's deeply personal, and most importantly,
Gotcha.
it changes with time. So Shanti stood at the threshold of the prayer room, and for a moment the room fell still. No one guided her, not a word was said, and without a hesitation, she stepped inside. She said, "The Krishna idol used to be on the left," she said, "next to the brass bell, but it's moved now. The Ganesh was once on the right, near the oil lamp." She looked around confused for the first time, not because she was lost, but because the room had changed. "You've rearranged everything," she whispered, "since I left." The men from the commission looked at one another. Once again, they talked to the husband. The husband confirmed that there had been changes, the changes that she was describing. Then she walked to a small alcove and she reached under a shelf, pointing to an empty space.
Oh,
The silver container used to be here. I kept kumkum and turmeric in it. I used it every morning before cooking. A relative nodded slowly. The silver
wow.
container had belonged to Lugdi. It had been moved after her death years ago. And now she pointed to an unused drawer. Standing in it once held incense sticks and oils for the lamps. And now there was a small clay pot hidden behind a box of sandalwood powder. Every detail matched what the family remembered, but no one had showed Shanti any of it.
Of
And
course
then,
not.
"The daya," she said, referring to a small ceremonial lamp, "used to be cracked, but you replaced it after I passed." Even that was true.
That's crazy.
Yeah, all these little details.
Everything. She just knows.
Mm-hmm. Now, after the shrine, the commission thought that they've seen enough. But Shanti wasn't done. Without being prompted, she turned to one of the investigators and asked, "May I see the kitchen?" They allowed her to lead the way. She walked confidently down the corridor, past closed rooms. She turned to a small sunlit space. And then Shanti didn't hesitate. She stepped inside, went directly to a lower shelf near the hearth, and she said, "That's the pan I used to make his favorite potato cakes," she said.
Oh, it's kind of
Yep.
cute.
"I used to add this is a spice, ajwain, ajwain seeds, and a little bit of green chili. He liked them the best that way, especially on fasting days." Her husband Kedar, standing nearby, confirmed it. That was exactly how Lugdi made them. A
Wow.
detail he never shared with anyone. So then she pointed at a cabinet. "This used to hold a grain sack, but now it's too clean. Someone changed it." Again, she was right. The kitchen had been rearranged after her death. Next, she walked over to a small room off the kitchen. "This was my bedroom," she said. that one I used during the monsoon.
Mm.
She
That's
walked
it.
over to a particular corner and said, "I like to sit here in the afternoons. The corner stayed cool during the summer, and the light was soft in the mornings." No one mentioned this, but the description matched how the light filtered through the narrow window.
Wow. The
And then
smallest
came
detail.
a moment that rattled the commission even more. She looked at her husband and she asked, "Do you still have my jewelry trunk?" The family looked at one another as if it had been moved to a storage room. They brought it out for her, a small wooden box with a brass. And without hesitation, Shanti reached for the latch and she said, "The keyhole sticks, so I used to lift it slightly before turning the key." She was right.
Oh my
The
God.
mechanism had a slight jam, a flaw only
Wow.
the person who used it regularly would know.
Wow.
Yep. Inside were a few old bangles, a mirror, and a pocket of dried rose petals. Shanti touched them gently. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She simply whispered, "This were mine." Um, and then, let's see. She met, okay, this is when she starts to meet more family members. Um, at this point, word had already spread because clearly on the way there, she had bumped into a few relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Word had already spread through the alleyways that the girl who claimed to be Lugdi had returned. Neighbors stood in doorways, leaning out from windows, pretending to be sweeping just to be a little closer. Um, and the commission decided it was time to for another test to arrange for several people from the neighborhood, friends from the family, old acquaintances. See
Yeah.
if Shanti would recognize them. She was not told their names. She was not given any hints. The first woman who entered was an older neighbor who had lived down the street when Lugdi was alive. Shanti looked up and she gently said, "Namaste, Chachiji. You used to bring me mango pickle when we were pregnant together."
Aw.
The woman's face went pale. The memory had never been public, and yes, they had been pregnant at the same time. Another neighbor stepped into the room, and Shanti immediately addressed her as Buaji, an
Honorific.
honorific used for paternal aunt or elder woman close to the family. She even asked her son, calling him by name, though no one in the room had ever met him before.
Oh.
Now, there's so many times that there's so much information that there's so many like final tests, but then there's always a test after that. But this is one of the ones I think maybe final test for meeting people.
Okay.
When they met Kedar's cousin when he arrived, he was someone that was very skeptical about this. As he heard that, she had been reincarnated, she was an 8-year-old, he was very skeptic about all this. He showed up with a stern face, crossed arms, and once again, no introduction.
Yeah.
Shanti studied him, and for a moment she said, "You were angry with me because I told you not to take that loan. You still haven't repaid it, have you?"
Fuck.
He froze, the room felt silent, and the commission waited. And then the cousin nodded, slowly and shaken. There had been a private dispute between Lugdi Devi and him about a small family loan he had taken without consulting the elders. And it had
Wow.
and this issue had caused a rift between them, a tension that no outsider would have known. The only people that were aware were Kedar Nath and his late wife. So once again, this wasn't just knowledge, this was contextual knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
She didn't just know names, she knew relationships,
Yes.
social hierarchies, the exact tone to use with the people that she was talking with. She had lived this experience. By the end of the day, there were no more whispers among relatives. There were only stunned faces. And there's one more quote that I have from a newspaper article because I found this to be something just interesting.
Yeah.
It said, But strange enough, when we took her to see her parents' house, situated in a neighboring street in Mathura, she not only recognized it, but she was able to identify her father and mother in a crowd of more than 50 people. The girl embraced
Dude.
her parents and wept bitterly at her sight. Now, every one of us thought it was really a blessing to forget all about previous lives. We confess we have taken grave responsibility on our shoulders to bring the little girl to Mathura.
Wow.
Now, she had pretty much interacted with everyone in depth except the one person that you kind of mentioned earlier, her son.
Mm-hmm. She just kind of avoided him.
The child, well, I mean, once again, they didn't want to really expose him to this girl who was claiming to be his dead mother.
That's
But
true.
after all this was her son, the child born in the final moments of Devi's life, the baby she never got to hold. He was about 8 years old now. He was wide-eyed, hesitant. He had only known of his mother from stories, photos, and now she was standing before him, a little girl claiming to be his mother.
Same age as
Shant-
him.
Yep. Shanti's demeanor lit up at that point, almost otherworldly, but the moment their eyes met, something cracked. She gasped softly. She stepped forward, her small arms wrapped around tightly around the boy, pulling him close, pressed her cheek against his, and like tears filled her eyes. "My son," she
Oh.
whispered, "I never got to hold you. I died before I could." This was just a mother's heartbreak, trapped in the body of a child.
Yeah, that's really all it is. She just wanted
And
to be with her family.
it was a reunion, and for the rest of the room, it felt like this was something else, a live-in impossibility, grief that had traveled lifetimes. And, she was there to say, "I'm sorry I wasn't there," to her son. For the commission, this was the final piece. Logic could dissect dates, guesswork, family, but what they saw in that room was emotion. Raw, undeniable maternal grief flowing through the eyes of a girl who had never given birth.
Wow.
After everything, there was discussions of whether she would stay in Mathura or whether she would come back to Delhi. And let me find that.
That's such a tough decision because once again it's like her parents who are having to be okay with letting her go, and the council of deciding that yes, this girl is telling the truth. She did live this life and she's reincarnated, and
Yeah.
then also the fact that she's only 8, but she would be going back to her husband who's a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of weird. But then also he's married.
Who's married.
Yeah, he's married. So how is that gonna work?
Yep. I mean, the question was asked whether she would come back to Mathura, but at the end of the day, she returned home, not to the Yellow House where she once died, but to Delhi,
to Delhi,
to the family where she was born. She pretty much just looked at the commission and her parents, and she said, "Now I've seen my home again. I'm ready to live this life."
I've held my boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I've made my peace with it.
Yep. So, she ended up coming back for all that emotional weight of her return to her former home. She didn't stay in Mathura. As much as her heart might have remembered it, the world around her no longer fit. She was still a child.
Yeah.
Kedar, like you said, was married. He was nearing middle age. Her son, biologically, but emotionally hers, was now being raised by another woman. One that Shanti refused to acknowledge even after everything that was said and done. And more importantly, cultural norms, societal rules.
Yeah.
Like, natural order of things made it impossible for her to reclaim her life in any literal sense.
Exactly. She's an 8-year-old girl. Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
And Kedar, to his credit, he understood that. He believed her and he had no doubt, but he also let her go. He was not going to force this 8-year old
Of
this
course
one.
not. That's
Yeah.
good.
So as Shanti grew older, her fame dimmed in the eyes of the public, but her memories never did. She didn't become a prophet. She didn't start a religion. She didn't go into lecturing tours to sell books about her past life. She just lived quietly, spiritually, and she never married again.
Good.
Uh,
Good for her. Just living her life.
and when they asked her why, she said little. Um, but to close her belief, but those close to her believed that the answers was simple. Her heart had already lived a love so deep that it spanned lifetimes. So what could compare to that?
Wow. That's beautiful.
Shan, it really is. Shanti lived out her years in Delhi, often cooperating with researchers who wanted to understand reincarnation, but always with calm grace. She never contradicted herself. Her story remained exactly the same. No exaggerations, no sensationalism.
Hmm.
Um, and she remembered the details of Lugdi Devi's life until the very last days, down to the
Wow.
pain of childbirth, the color of her sari, the location of the shrine, the lullabies. And in 1987, at the age of 60, Shanti Devi passed away peacefully. Never once did she recant. Never once did she say it was just a dream. Now, that's the story of Shanti Devi. And there's many cases of reincarnation out there, many stories, like across cultures, continents, centuries. Like many children like recall battles that they never fought,
Yeah.
towns that they never like seen,
Yeah.
names, things like that. But none have been so thoroughly investigated or widely publicized as
Yeah.
Shanti Devi's case.
Seems like it.
Now, there's a few things from Shanti Devi's case that really stand out from other cases. First of all, of course, the yellow house that was later changed to white. The hiding spot for the money underneath a floorboard was true. At some point, she
Hmm.
did ask her husband, "Hey, did you use that money to pay this off?" Turns out he didn't. He used that money to pay for the funeral arrangements for her.
Yeah.
The names of neighbors, the food she once cooked, private conversations, and also most of these reincarnation cases that we hear about, the child tends to forget about them as they get older. They mention it when they're young, 4, 8, and then as they get older, they forget that they mentioned that they had a past life. Shanti remembered it until she passed away.
Yeah.
Her entire life, she remembered it. And of course, something else that made it stand out is that Gandhi handpicked a commission of scholars, lawyers,
Yeah. That's
skeptics.
crazy.
Yeah, her statements were so accurate that they couldn't really attribute it to like chance or fraud. Um, so once again, her memories didn't blur. Over time, they didn't become more specific or less specific. She wasn't prompted. She wasn't coached. She never changed her story. Not when she was 4, not when she was 6, not when she was 16 or when she was 60. It all remained constant. Um, Most children speak of past lives between the ages of 3 and 7. The memories are often incomplete, vague, and they fade as the child grows.
Hmm.
And they rarely include full names,
Hmm.
addresses, or emotional depth.
But this was a full life.
Yep, Shanti broke every rule. She remembered her own death in childbirth. She remembered her husband's own business details, and she remembered her son. Um,
Wow.
so there's also an interview that was done. I don't have all the details. It was an interview that was done, I think, when she was like in her 40s, I think. And they asked her, I forgot what the question was, but pretty much she said that when she was given birth and like she knew that she wasn't gonna make it, that she was praying, and as she was praying, like, you know, things went dark and she just had this prayer, and she believes that she was reincarnated because she was selfish.
Oh.
And she says that because she was ready to let go of all material things, of everything. But she said that she was reincarnated because she was selfish, because she never got to hold her child. And she
Honestly, I don't
believes,
think that's selfish. I think that's
well, she said, I was like, she's the way that she said it is like true love would have been me letting him go. Because I think the way that she described it is that there's three stages of death, and it was like the third stage of death is reincarnation. It was like a weird way
hmm
that she described it. Um, but yeah, so she never changed her story. This is the reincarnation case of Shanti Devi, and
That was fascinating.
yeah,
Genuinely. Like there's so much evidence and so much detail of everything that happened with this.
hmm,
It's I'll have to look into it myself more because it's like I'm trying to find ways to debunk this,
yeah.
but with what I've been given or like from you from this case, it's just like,
Yeah,
whoa, like how is
I
all
can
this explained, you
I
know?
can send you newspaper clippings as well. There's not a ton, but there is a few of them as well.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Um, the most I've heard to try to debunk this was that one of the people that was keeping records at some point kind of formed an attachment to her and was a little biased, and that's where most of the records came from.
Oh,
But other than that, there is a lot of records out there. This was thoroughly documented. So there is a lot of information out there regarding this case.
hmm.
It's one of the most, if not the most, well documented case when it comes to
Yeah,
reincarnation.
seems like it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of
Wow.
information. I was like, oh my God. I was like, how do I not go super long on this case? But
Fair.
also so many like intricate
Yeah, no,
details.
there's so much to cover, so I get it.
Yeah, one of the details, Shanti Devi wasn't too upset at her husband being remarried was because when she had health complications at the hospital, she knew that her husband was being unfaithful because he was having an affair with a nurse.
Oh,
Yeah. So she already knew that he struggled at being faithful. Um,
and yet
but
she still wanted to be back with him. That's crazy. Okay.
well, I don't know if she wanted to be back with him. I think it was more of like
More of her son, like holding her
her
son for the
son.
last time.
Yeah.
That makes
It's
sense.
more like
Yeah,
I
that
remember
makes
all
sense.
these details
Yeah.
and out of custom I will still like he's still my husband. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, thank
So
you for sharing. That was really cool.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
hope
I
the
did.
listeners did as
I
well.
hope the listeners do. Let us know what you guys think, like your thoughts on reincarnation, if you have any, you know, if
Yeah.
you're aware of this story and any research you've done into it, that would be awesome. So,
If you guys want more stories of reincarnation, let us know because there is a lot more out there. They're
cool.
not as well documented as this one, so we might cover multiple for an episode, or
Yeah.
we might just be a bonus episode or something. But let us know.
Yeah. But with that, I think we're
That's
done.
yeah, another one in the bag. We've covered a man traveling through Canada to the States,
And
and then
then,
we've covered
yeah,
a little girl traveling maybe between
through
lifetimes.
lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Um,
Thank you for sticking around.
episode title,
Yeah, we'll figure it.
through through
Just
countries and through lifetimes or something like that.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, the listeners
Anyway,
already know. We don't.
yeah, cool. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Let us know your thoughts as always. Um, we'll catch you in the next one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye. Smurfs.
Ah.
Thanks for listening to Chambers of the Occult. For photos, sources, and anything else mentioned during the episode, check out our website at chambersoftheoccult.com. You'll find everything you need there if you do find yourself wanting more. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Chambers of the Occult and on Twitter at COTO Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, personal anecdotes, or concerns, let us know. Fill out our contact form on our website, email us at chambersoftheoccult@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our socials. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed what you heard, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely the best way to show your support, and it would mean the world. Until next time.